Hey everybody, it's Matt Brown, and since I've been teaching a lot of lessons of songs that are tuned down and lower drop tunings, and I'll be teaching a lot of Soundgarden stuff here coming up, so I thought I would give a short little lesson or tutorial on how to set up your guitar for these detuned kind of tunings. Okay, so the first and biggest mistake I think that most people make is that, their guitar is probably set up, it came that way either from the store, the factory, whatever, set up for standard tuning, and that, appropriate size strings for that tuning. Maybe 9s or 10 gauge strings, 11 maybe if, you're a country or blues player, jazz maybe too. So if you have, for instance, let's say, use the example of 9 gauge strings. 9s are pretty much, I would say, the absolute lightest strings I can put on this guitar. And every guitar is a little bit different and will kind of like different things. So since Les Pauls have a shorter scale length, my guitar, it tends to prefer 10 gauge strings, even in standard tuning. So if I tune my guitar, this guitar, down a half step, I can still get away with using 10 gauge strings. And there are a few things you want to look out for. You don't want them to feel like rubber bands, because then you'll have a tendency to over-fret notes, and that will cause them to go sharp and out of tune. The guitar is still intonated nicely with 10 gauge strings in that tuning, and it still has a nice tone. So those are generally the three things to look for. It not feeling like just rubber bands, totally loose. The intonation stays good, and the tone is good. So, let's say, for example, though, I wanted to tune down from standard tuning to down a full step. Then at that point, I do find with this guitar that I need to put on heavier strings. I typically either put on an 11 gauge set, of which I like the D'Addario 11 gauge set, or I do a hybrid set. And this is kind of usually what I like for drop C and stuff like that, where it's really low on the bass side, is I use the Ernie Ball heavy bottoms in the orange pack, and that has basically a 10 gauge set for the treble strings and a 12 gauge set for the lower strings. Okay, so now at this point, something that we need to talk about is the truss rod. Because when you're adjusting from one tuning to another fairly different tuning, even though you're compensating for the lack of pressure on the truss rod with heavier strings, you're making some pretty big changes to what's happening to your guitar. So the first thing that you want to do on a guitar with a fixed bridge or a guitar without a tremolo is adjust the truss rod. So for adjusting the intonation on my Les Paul, I prefer this tool, and it's got a Phillips head screwdriver on one end, and then this is kind of like a whole cup-shaped thing with like a hexagon pattern that fits around the Les Paul truss rod for adjustments. So, basically what you do is you take the Phillips head end, unscrew the plate over the truss rod, and then when that comes off, you want to kind of look at your guitar like this. And so if as you're looking at your guitar down this way, if I turn this to my right or this way, I am tightening the truss rod, and that'll take your bow, if there is one in your neck, and straighten it out. So let's talk about that then. What do you want to look for in terms of, the relief or how much of a dip you have in your fretboard? So you want to have a little bit of relief in a guitar's fretboard. You don't want your fretboard to be totally straight, like just 180 degrees, and you also don't want like a back bow or a bow the reverse way, which would result from too much pressure on the truss rod, or if you put strings on that are too heavy for your guitar, that can happen too. So a quick and easy way to look at this is to use a capo and put it on the first fret. And now by on the first fret, I mean literally on the metal itself. And as an aside note, I like the D'Addario Steinberger capo. It's definitely the best, so buy that one if you don't have a capo. All right, then with your right hand, what you're going to do is press down your high E string at the highest fret on a Les Paul 22nd fret. So then what you're looking for is the amount of relief or the distance that you have between the string, the bottom of the string, and the fret at around the 7th or 8th fret. And for most guitars, and every guitar, like I've said, is a little bit different, and that's across the board with everything. This guitar pretty much, it likes to have a little bit more relief than, say, the Paul Reed Smith that I play in all these videos. So probably enough to slip like a piece of paper or maybe 2 pieces of paper between the string and the fret, but definitely not as much as a business card or something thicker like a credit card. So, if you can slip the paper in between there, you're good. If the business card goes through, it's probably, there's a little too much relief. Maybe not, though, for your guitar, but for a credit card to go through, I would wager to say with every guitar out there, that's way too much relief. So if there's too much relief, you need to tighten the truss rod a little bit, and you just want to do it like, I would say, an eighth or a quarter turn at a time. And then let the guitar sit for a minute or so, and then kind of check it out again, because it will take a little bit of time for the wood to adjust and kind of sink into its new place. Okay, next thing, after you have your truss rod properly adjusted, the intonation has to be set again when you're changing to new tunings. So that's pretty easy. On this guitar, it's done with the screws here that are on the back of the saddle. So these, by turning the screws, you're either going to be pulling the saddle back, or you're going to be moving it forward. So what you want to do is, just play your open E string, and I'm down a half step here, and then also play the 12th fret note. And you want to do this with an electronic tuner. I use the Boss Chromatic Floor Tuner. That's what I like. Not endorsing or anything, I'm just saying I think it's best and most cost effective. Anyway, right, so you're going to check the pitch of the open string, make sure that's in tune, then play the 12th fret, both playing a fretted note and your natural harmonic at the 12th fret. So if the note is both in tune with the open string and the 12th fret harmonic and 12th fret note, you're good to go. If it's not, let's say the pitch of the 12th fret note is flat. So the way that you want to remember how to adjust the saddle is flat forward, so F and F. So if the 12th fret is flat, move the saddle this way. If the note were sharp, move it back that way. And so you want to check all 6 strings. All right, so that's pretty much all you'll need to do for tuning down. You shouldn't need to change your action unless you're going to such a crazy tuning that you're putting on just ginormous strings. In that case, you might need to raise your action up a tiny, tiny bit. And on the Les Paul, you do that by basically detuning the strings, and then there's like these little rotary dial type screws that are underneath the saddle. So left, it's kind of, unfortunately, you'd think left lower, but left raises it. So going to the left or counterclockwise will raise the bridge, and then going the other way lowers it. So for tools and resources, I'm going to post some links in the comments section for things for you guys to check out, like to pick up tools for the truss rod wrench, the screwdrivers that will go into the bridge for adjusting intonation, and also a ruler for measuring the action of your guitar, which is done in 64ths of an inch. I like to get all that stuff through the Stu Mac company. It's just a really handy website, and it's really easy to search and find this stuff. So there's that, and I'll also post a reference video of the best way to install and change your strings. And that's from a luthier from the Martin company. So you'll see some really good close-up shots and descriptions of how to actually install the strings too. Okay, well that'll do it for this tutorial. If you guys have any questions, like always, just shoot me an email or post something in the comments and I'll help you out. And also, if any of you want information on setting up a guitar with a tremolo system, either a double locking or a floating tremolo system like I have on my Paul Reed Smith, I'll be glad to help you guys out with that. So check out the references, and thanks a lot for watching, and we'll get into some more down-tuned songs here in the future.